guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over a pretty entertaining email that was sent from a subscriber. This from a guy, he's in his late 50s. He was originally born in Latin America, but eventually became a U.S. citizen. And he shares his story, how he was both born into a family of Chads and raised to be a Chad. His dad, his uncles, all that, older brothers, raised him to be that way. And of course, becoming that way, gained a lot of realistic views on female nature from a very young age. But even those types of guys, many of them eventually want to settle down and have a family, and they can switch off their ways. Unlike gals who go through their carousel phases, and that can't actually stop. They may stop temporarily, get a husband, and they're back to their old ways. But anyhow, this guy, you're going to see in the story, he had quite a realistic education about female nature. And when he was ready to, start settling down, a gal he got involved with thought he obviously was your typical nice guy and tried pulling some BS with him, and let's just say it didn't work out too well. And that'd be an entertaining one to go over here, guys, just to show you about don't try to fool a Chad. It's not going to work for the women out there. Now, before I get into a story, real quick announcement. I've been saying this for a couple days now, but for you guys that are on X, formerly Twitter, I'm now on there as well. And so you guys should definitely follow me under SSM Channels. It's a hub for all my channels. As many of you are well aware, for years now, YouTube isn't too friendly to channels like mine. There's a lot of other guys out there going through the same thing. And I'm on there now to help promote the channel, make announcements for new channels and all that, new videos and all that, because a lot of you guys tell me, you don't know when there's new updates because guess what? YouTube doesn't tell you. Or they unsubscribe you or silly nonsense like that. So this is a way to make sure you guys get to see that I have the videos coming out on time, as well as to expand to a broader audience. So again, check me out, SSM Channels. It's only been a couple days. I already got like 1,500 people follow me. It's a lot of fun. I'm having a very good time talking to you guys and sharing various things and all that. So come on by. It's growing pretty quickly. All right, on to the story. It says, hello, SSM. I'm almost 60 years old now. However, I was, since I can remember as a teenager, what you would call a Chad. One thing I can tell you is that once a Chad, you're always a Chad. You can mature and control it, but I guess that's it. I guess a leopard never changes its spots. So I think in your situation, you were the Chad that the women really liked, had no problem. Guys probably couldn't stand you, didn't want their girls around you. But you had the choice whether you were the type of guy that was a Chad who was a lowlife, and who would deliberately sleep with women that were married, had boyfriends. Obviously, that's not who you were and are, and that's good. But a lot of Chads, obviously, that's what we associate with. You're just a dude they always liked and all that. First, I would like to explain how I became a Chad. Oh, do tell. I was born and grew up in Latin America. Back home in the late 1970s, early 80s, being a womanizer was the thing to become if you wanted to be cool and popular. To make matters worse, my father, uncles, older cousins were all what we might call certified Chads. Well, it's interesting because you were born into this and raised to be a Chad. And ultimately, that's where you learn advice from women from men, experienced men. Most of the time, most guys are raised in a household where their dad, their uncles, and the men are a bunch of, simp nice guys. To give you an idea, at the age of 13 years old, my father, uncle, cousin decided it was time for me to become a man. And a month before my 14th birthday, they all took me to a house of ill repute. Again, this is decades ago. This is in Latin America. Anything can happen. Well, I was nervous as hell, but my cousin, who was at that time 8 years older than me, said that this was a family tradition and that all cousins and him had gone through it. So while my father, cousin, and uncle sipped away scotch and laughed at me at the bar, I went to a room with a nice lady that told my father she was going to take very good care of me. Well, quite different than my childhood at 14 years old. Well, after that, my cousins and I would go to Salsa and cumbia dancing every weekend, and sometimes my uncle and father would join the fun. Needless to say, I was a young teen among a sea of older, nice ladies. I quickly learned to dance salsa and cumbia, cumbia. How the fuck you say that? I became a bit of a Chad at the scene since all my older cousins were very popular. So again, you were born and raised to be this way. The fact that I was a very tall kid and good looking, becoming a Chad was very natural. Just to give you an idea, at 18 years old, I was already 6'2" and around 230, very athletic and muscular with a small waist. Dude, you could have been a bodybuilder with all that in a small waist. To make matters worse, I'm blonde with blue eyes, and those characteristics in Latin America put you in a different and very good-looking guy category. Blonde and blue eye, Latin America. Um, maybe your mom wasn't exactly true and blue to your Chad dad after all. But anyhow, so getting attention from ladies was never a problem. When my father would join us for a drink and a bit of fun, he always told me there are two types of women in the world: the ones that are wife material that you marry, and the ones you have fun with. Most importantly, he said, never confuse one for the other. Very wise advice from your dad. You can't turn a HOE into a housewife. He also said that it was my job as a man to quickly learn what category any girl I would date would fall into. He also told me that over 90% of the women out there are not wife material, and no wife material would attend the salsa scene or dance clubs. From then on, all girls I met at salsa were the only girls to have fun with. Exactly. Your dad's a sharp guy. A lot of people will say your dad's a scumbag in so many ways, and that can be debated. But your dad imparted in you some very good, wise advice that all guys need to hear. Yeah, this story is going to prove that the vast majority are, in fact, like this. We know the stories we hear and what you guys experience. At the age of 20 years old, I moved to America to attend college. You mean USA. Life in the USA was no different than back home. Lots of girls, but none of them were wife material, so the chat and me continued on. After getting my BA, I became a police officer. So you obviously came over here and eventually became a citizen. As a police officer, my investigative skills and street smarts became augmented, and because of my profession and looks, the chat and me continued to grow. After about 10 years as a cop, I decided to go back to school, and I became an attorney. Wow, well, good for you. A lot of people would choose one career path and that'd be the end of it, but good for you, man. So you were a Chad with a brain who could take tests well enough to get a good score on the LSATs, get to law school, survive law school, take the fucking bar exam. That's impressive, man. As an attorney, now with money and looks, the Chad in me was so ingrained that I didn't know how to be any other way. By the time I reached the young age of 38 years old, I settled into my new profession, and at the advice of my father, I decided that it was time for me to find a wife and maybe form a family. So at 38 years old, I mean, at this point, how old's your freaking dad? Your dad must be in his 70s at this point. He's like, son, I need some grandchildren. Well, I quickly realized that this was a very difficult task, and that my quest for the elusive nice girl, to my surprise, was very difficult. Bro, I'm sure it should have been too hard for you to figure out how difficult it was to find a nice girl marriage material, because you know reality. And yeah, nothing's changed. In fact, it's even more difficult nowadays. Well, in America, girls my age were angry, jaded, and most were divorced with kids. Right here, his late 30s, women his age. I'll read that again. And this is decades ago. Angry, jaded, and most were divorced with kids. Younger girls only wanted to date me to have fun, and none were interested in me but in the fun I could provide. The rest just wanted me for my money and my lifestyle. Even when I tried to hide the fact that I had a good income, my profession was all they needed to hear to assume I had money. Yeah, you pretty much say to any girl, doctor or lawyer, boom, you're in. And nowadays, some people would say, social media influencer. And then they'll maybe say, okay, who are you? And they'll look you up. After about a year looking, I met a gal from back home. So you went all the way back home to find this girl. Let's call her Rose. Rose is around my age with similar values and similar cultural background. She had also arrived in America in her early 20s. She seemed a good prospect since she was from back home and came from an upper middle class home like me. She was very well educated and very classy. She also claimed that she had been married for 12 years and that her husband had passed away from cancer in his late 30s. Okay, so you're thinking, all right, she's like me, came to the States for a while, worked, became a citizen, now she's back looking for somebody. She's divorced, it's not her fault he passed away. Okay, she's worth a shot. Well, let's see. At the time we met, Rose told me that she became a widow in her early 30s, and she only had one relationship with a man, and that she was still with him on and off, and she was not interested in men anymore. Well, we're not getting involved until you're totally off, Miss Rose. That should have been my big red flag, but as a Chad, I never learned to screen at wife material properly, so I ignored the red flags. I know, smack. Yeah, so you know what it's like to be a Chad and get them, but in terms of like a screening process every other guy has to go through. You weren't used to that. You should have known to pay attention for the signs. Because these gals are. It's funny how when you're ready to settle down, now you have to start thinking like the rest of the guys out there. Before, you're just like, love them and leave them, who cared? And they were flocking to you. Well, I started seeing Rose. She was also a salsa dancer. He says, second huge red flag that I ignored. And going out dancing was our thing. After a few weeks, Rose told me she had stopped seeing the boyfriend and told me she was not interested in a monogamous relationship with me, and I agreed. Smack! You said yourself. She was still had an on again, off again boyfriend when you met. Salsa dancer, which you knew and your dad told you was trouble. Well, after almost a year into our monogamous relationship, my old cop instincts kicked in. One night we were in bed and her phone rang at 2 o'clock in the morning. Rose almost frantically reached over me, grabbed her phone from the nightstand, and silenced it. When I asked her who it was, she said it was a girlfriend from back home calling her. At 2 o'clock in the freaking morning, really? At that time, back home in Latin America have been around 6 a.m., so I filed that fact away in my mind as strange and kind of let it go. No, you should not let it go. However, the frantic way in which she reached over me and grabbed the phone gave me a huge concern. I also had noticed that her landline was always unplugged from the wall when I was at her place. She had said that she would do that so we would not be bothered by her phone ringing during my visits or stays. Really? Yeah, sure. Now, by the way, this is obviously a couple decades ago, back during the time period when people had landlines. But the phone can ring unless her phone's ringing off the hook or somebody's calling that she doesn't want him to hear. Well, a week later, the same exact thing happened at 2 o'clock in the morning. We were leaving a salsa club and her cell phone rang again. This time I was able to see the screen, and I saw the name of the person calling was, wait for it, her old boyfriend. Old boyfriend, more like her existing boyfriend. He's the main guy, you're the side guy, she's, you get the point. The same one that she had supposedly dumped. I asked her why he was calling her, and particularly at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she told me she could not control who calls her. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. She could block him. She could have words with him. I got a new guy now, blah, blah, blah. Don't call me. Well, from then on, my old cop persona took over. 2 days after the second late night call incident, I told her I was going to go to the gym that evening and not to expect a call from me until after 10 o'clock at night. Rose told me it was fine since she was tired from work and she'd stay home for the evening. Okay, so you can all see the direction this is going here. You think she's going to stay home for the evening? That she was going to eat dinner, maybe take a nap or watch TV, and that I should call her after 10 p.m. However, instead of going to the gym, I borrowed my buddy's car, parked it across the street from her place. By the time I arrived at her place around 6:30 p.m., I could see that Rose was not home. So much for staying at home, eating, and taking a nap. Her car was gone and all the lights in her house were off. I texted around 7 p.m. telling her I was at the gym and I was thinking about her. Oh, for God's sake. Now, obviously, he did this on purpose. Because guys that do that shit fall in total, like, nice guy simp category. Girls would be like, oh, that's so nice. Meanwhile, they're hooking up with Chad and Tyrone on the side. Well, she did not respond. Shocker. At around 8 p.m., I texted her again and asked if she was okay. Mind you, she always responded to my texts and phone calls, immediately when she was not at work. So again, she's still ignoring you. Now, gentlemen, he's doing this on purpose to test her. This obviously isn't how this dude rolls, because if this guy or any guy behaves like this, bombarding their girl with texts, that's not a good place to be. Even at work, it would never take her longer than 15 minutes to call me back. By 10 p.m., I texted her again and told her I was worried that she was not texting back or calling. I also called her, and it went straight to voicemail. At about 10:30 p.m., she arrived home. So he's out in front of her house on his stakeout, calling her, texting her, watching the whole thing. And here she comes at 10:30 at night. Never ever responded to his texts or phone calls. What do you think she's doing? Or more importantly, who do you think she's doing? Well, she parked her car and walked into her house. After a minute or two, she called me. I asked her if she was okay, and she stated that after dinner, she had fallen asleep and did not hear the phone. What an asshole. I laughed at her and told her she was a liar and that I did not date liars. She looked out the window and saw me standing across the street. I waved to her, hung up the phone, and went home. That's awesome, man. I can see out there like, hey, babe, how was that nap? Well, Rose called me the next day, and out of curiosity, I picked up the phone. Why? Why would you? Unless you wanted to just have some fun with her, what the hell's the point? You're done with her. All she's going to do is just do hoe bag handbook shit, cry, beg, tell you anything, lie to you again. While sobbing and crying, she told me she made a huge mistake by lying, and after a long silence from me, Rose confessed that in fact, she had gone to see the old boyfriend. Duh. Right there. Crying and begging, huge mistake. See, this is decades ago. People from different culture who then immigrated to the U.S., women do the same fucking thing. She said that nothing happened, and she just went to see him as friends, and to talk since she missed their friendship. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. If it was just a friendly thing, then why didn't she say anything? Not that this guy would go for that. But you see, in her mind, her perception of this guy is, hey, I can just bullshit him and cry and beg and make up some, act like I normally do with other guys, and I'll go for it. No, she underestimated this guy. In my mind, even though I knew there was no future and it was over, I told her that she showed me her phone bill for the past year, texts and emails with him. I would reconsider not dumping her. She refused, so I dumped her on the spot. There you go. You gave her a chance. I mean, she knew her ass was grass, but there you go. Remember your dad's words that 90% are not dateable, not wife material, and watch out for those salsa dancers in the clubs. There you go. I blocked her. And so she continued to stalk me at home and at work for the next few weeks. Really? A former police officer? I told her she didn't stop. I would call the cops, and that I knew enough cops from my old job to have her arrested. I also told her I would have my lawyer sue her if she didn't stop bothering me, so she finally stopped. Look what happens when you play hardball. About a year later, I met my current wife. We've been happily married now for 17 years. Well, congratulations, man. I'm assuming your wife was not a clubber or salsa dancer. My wife knew my RP rules from day one. Needless to say, I still investigated the hell out of her from inception. We dated for about 2 years, and during those 2 years, all I did was police work on her. Surveillance, criminal background, credit check, assets, debts, friends, acquaintances, history, social media, phone records. I even hired a PI for a while to investigate her teenage years and college life. Holy mackerel. I guarantee you that some women would hear this and lose their minds. Oh my God, he's so controlling. Well, this is what a guy has to do nowadays. You all know it. Especially if you plan on marrying her. She does not know what I did and never will. And yet you're telling me and I'm putting this on freaking YouTube? I'm glad to say that she passed all the tests with flying colors. I also found out that she had a lot more money than me, inherited from old family money. So I married her. Oh, now we know. Now we see how Chad rolls. Now I'll marry her. She's got more money than me. Needless to say, I didn't marry her for the money, but it was nice to know the fact that she wasn't after mine. Well, that's good. And yeah, you do well for yourself. It'd be nice to have a chick that has some money too, so she's not mooching off you and is there for you. Still, after all this time, once in a while, when she's not looking, I do check her social media, emails, texts, and calls. I also keep a GPS tracker on her phone and car. She knows about the GPS and knows that it's there for her personal safety, of course. She doesn't mind it at all. Quite the opposite, she likes that I know where she is at all times. Trust but verify. She says it makes her feel safe. Now, at almost 60 years old, I can say I'm not a Chad anymore. Well, maybe. Regards, M. Well, there you go. That's a good one. And again, to show you guys that, well, once a Chad, always a Chad. But, well, let me rephrase that. The Chad's in him. And he knows. But even the Chads at some point do want to settle down. And it's amazing how this guy, being as he was raised and how he was for a while, and he finally wanted to settle down. And I can believe there's the big difference between a lot of these guys versus the gals that are the carousel riders. The carousel riders can't stop their ways. Hence the pair bonding thing, that whole study. But a guy can be a Chad, if you will, for a while, but then be done. And be a good family man, and he'll still, don't get me wrong, women will be attracted to him, but he can make the choice. But with the women, they find their nice guy and get married, and then many, at some point, go back to their old ways. But the guys can at the very least be like, all right, I'm done that bullshit. I want to be a father, a good husband, and right there. But anyhow, good story there, and it goes to show you how even with who you were, all that, this gal perceived you as a nice guy and thought she was going to have her way with you and all that. But surprise, surprise, you showed her. So definitely a good, entertaining one there. But anyhow, man, I'm glad you shared your story, and I'm glad that you're doing well. Good marriage. I can't recall if you said you had any kids or anything, but if you do, I hope you have a good family and all that. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And, guys, you got a good story to share, definitely send it my way, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just give me some time to get to it, and I definitely will. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.